Hey, before we dive in, I want you to think about this. If the middle class has gotten richer over the last 2 decades, why do middle class people feel poorer than ever? That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And today, we're going to expose exactly what's happening and, more importantly, what you can actually do about it right now in 2026. Let's start with something that's been bugging me about the conversations happening on social media and in financial media. Everyone talks about the middle class dying like it's some mysterious force of nature, but it's not. The middle class isn't dying. It's being systematically squeezed by five specific financial traps that most people don't even recognize they're in. And here's the thing. Once you see these traps, you can actually escape them. So here's what we're covering today. The five brutal wealth traps that are eroding middle-class financial security, the real numbers behind each one, and three concrete strategies you can implement this week to start breaking free. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your paycheck feels smaller every year and what you actually need to do differently. Let's get into it. Trap number one is the housing affordability crisis, and this one is probably the most visible, but also the most devastating. Right now, in August 2026, median home prices in most major U.S. markets are sitting at levels that require a household income that most middle-class people simply don't have. In cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York, you're looking at homes that cost between 8 and 14 times the median household income. That ratio used to be 3 to 4 times back in the 1990s. Here's the real damage. When you spend 40, 50, or even 60% of your gross income on housing, you have almost nothing left for the other four wealth-building pillars: investments, education, business development, and emergency reserves. You're locked in. Your money is flowing to a bank or a landlord every single month, and you're not building equity in anything else. Even if you own your home, the rising property taxes and insurance costs that come with that appreciating asset are eating into cash flow that could otherwise go toward index funds, side businesses, or skill development. The trap deepens when you realize that renting doesn't solve the problem either. Rent in 2026 is up dramatically, and renters have zero equity accumulation. So whether you buy or rent in today's market, you're in a financial cage. The middle class is essentially forced to choose between catastrophic opportunity cost or financial stress. Now let's talk about trap number two: wage stagnation versus inflation. This is where the real squeeze happens, and the numbers are brutal. According to data from 2026, real wages, that's wages adjusted for inflation, have essentially flatlined for the average middle-class worker over the past 15 years. Your nominal salary might have gone from $60,000 to $85,000, which sounds great, but once you account for what inflation has done to the cost of living, you're actually earning less purchasing power than you were in 2011. Meanwhile, inflation hasn't been some gentle 3% per year kind of thing. From 2021 to 2024, we saw sustained inflation that destroyed consumer purchasing power. Yes, inflation has cooled somewhat in 2026, but the damage is already done. Groceries cost more, gas costs more, insurance costs more, utilities cost more. Everything that the middle class actually needs to survive has outpaced wage growth, while everything the wealthy own, stocks, real estate, businesses, has appreciated significantly. Here's the mechanism of the trap. You get a 2% raise. Inflation is 3%. You lose a point of real purchasing power that year. This happens every year for 15 years, and suddenly you're treading water financially while feeling like you should be advancing. It's a slow financial drowning that most people don't even consciously notice until they realize they can't save anymore. Trap number three is what I call the debt multiplication machine. This is where the system really gets clever. The middle class is encouraged, almost systematically, to take on debt at every life stage. Student loans to get the degree that's supposed to enable middle-class income. A mortgage to buy the house that's supposed to be your net worth builder. Car loans because you need transportation. Credit card debt because you're one unexpected expense away from financial stress at all times. Here's what's happening right now in 2026. The average middle-class household is carrying around $40,000 in non-mortgage debt. Student loan debt alone is sitting at over $1.7 trillion nationally. Credit card balances have hit record highs, and the interest rates on this debt are brutal. Student loans are in the 6 to 8% range. Credit cards are averaging 18 to 24%. Some people are dealing with debt that costs more than the return they could get in the stock market. The trap is this: debt service becomes a tax on your income. It's money that's leaving your hands every month that could otherwise go toward investments that compound. When you're paying 16% interest on a credit card balance, you're not just paying for the stuff you bought. You're paying a massive penalty for not having cash reserves. And statistically, the middle class has been conditioned to live paycheck to paycheck because housing, medical, and education costs have risen so fast that there's nothing left over. But here's where it gets worse. If you're caught in the debt trap and you do get an unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, a job loss, you can't tap savings because you don't have savings. You tap credit, and now your debt multiplies. This is the machine. It's self-reinforcing, and it's designed to extract wealth from the middle class through interest payments. Trap number 4 is the investment gap, and this one is about compounding inequality. Right now, in August 2026, the S&P 500 is trading around 766, and it's been up 3.7% just this month. Tech stocks have been on a tear, with the Nasdaq up 4.3% this month alone. If you've had money invested in index funds or tech stocks, you've made significant gains recently. But here's the trap. The average middle-class person doesn't have meaningful money invested anywhere. The data is depressing. Something like 60% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. Fewer than half of Americans own any stock at all, whether directly or through retirement accounts. And when middle-class people do invest, they often do it late, starting retirement savings in their 40s instead of their 20s, which means they miss out on decades of compound growth. Meanwhile, wealthy people are investing aggressively from their 20s onward. They're using platforms like Fidelity, Schwab, and Vanguard to build diversified portfolios in index funds, individual stocks, and alternative investments. They're using tax-advantaged accounts strategically. They're rebalancing regularly. And over 40 years, the difference between starting investments at 25 versus 45 is literally multiple millions of dollars in lost compound growth. The trap compounds, literally, because the wealthy make money on their money while middle-class people make money on their time. And time is finite. Money multiplies. So every year that you delay investing is a year you can't get back. The investment gap becomes a wealth canyon. Trap number 5 is what I call zero financial optionality. This is the psychological and practical trap that ties everything else together. When you're locked into housing debt, crushed by wage stagnation, buried in consumer debt, and haven't invested anything, you have zero choices. You can't leave a bad job because you need that paycheck immediately. You can't take a calculated risk on a business idea because you don't have runway capital. You can't negotiate aggressively because you live paycheck to paycheck. You can't move to a lower cost of living area because you're locked into a mortgage. Zero optionality is financially suffocating. It's the difference between having choices and being trapped. And the middle class right now has almost zero optionality. That's the real crisis. It's not just about money, it's about freedom. The wealthy person with 3 years of expenses saved up has optionality. They can wait for the right opportunity. They can take calculated risks. They can leave bad situations. The middle-class person living paycheck to paycheck has no choices. They're operating in survival mode, which means they can't think strategically or invest in their future. Okay, so we've identified the 5 traps. Now the question is, how do you actually break free? Because understanding the problem is only half the battle. Let me give you 3 concrete strategies you can implement right now. Strategy number 1 is to engineer your cash flow ruthlessly. This sounds simple, but most people don't actually do it. You need to know exactly where every dollar is going. Use an app like YNAB, you need a budget, or even a simple spreadsheet to track every expense for the next 30 days. You're going to discover spending leaks that you didn't know existed. Most middle-class households can find $300 to $500 per month in cuts without meaningfully reducing their quality of life. But here's the key. You don't cut to be frugal. You cut to redirect. That $500 per month becomes $6,000 per year. Over a decade, that's $60,000. But if you're investing it instead of spending it, and you're getting an average market return of 7 to 8% annually, that $60,000 becomes over $110,000. That's the power of redirected cash flow. Start this week. Open a simple investment account at Fidelity or Vanguard if you don't have one already, and set up automatic transfers of whatever you can cut from your budget. Strategy number 2 is to create an additional income stream that's not dependent on your job. This is not about a side hustle that exhausts you further. It's about identifying something you can monetize that doesn't trade your time for money at the same rate your job does. This could be freelance work in your field, but on your terms. It could be creating digital products. It could be starting a small service business that you can eventually systematize and hire for. It could be affiliate marketing or content creation. The specific vehicle matters less than the principle. You need income that doesn't increase linearly with your time worked. Right now in 2026, platforms like Gumroad, Teachable, and even YouTube make it relatively easy to create products and services that scale beyond your personal time. Pick something that leverages what you already know. Give yourself 6 months to test it. If it works, reinvest every penny back into that business for a year. Most people can create an additional $2,000 to $5,000 per month of revenue with focused effort over 12 months. That's $30,000 to $60,000 per year of additional income. Strategy number 3 is to optimize your debt strategically. Not all debt is bad debt, but consumer debt and high-interest debt are wealth killers. If you're carrying credit card debt above 10% interest, that's your first target. Use a debt payoff app like Tally or Snowball to automate the payoff process and stop the bleeding. If you have student loans, understand your options. In 2026, there are income-driven repayment plans and various forgiveness programs still in effect. Look at your situation carefully. But here's the nuance. If you have a mortgage at 3 or 4% interest, that's actually not your enemy. That's leverage. The problem is when you're paying 18% on credit cards while having zero invested. The math is simple. $1,000 earning 12% in the stock market is worth more than $1,000 not getting paid as interest on credit card debt. So the optimization is eliminate high-interest consumer debt aggressively, keep low-interest debt as long as it makes mathematical sense, and then redirect those freed-up cash flows toward investments. The reason these 3 strategies work is because they address the root of the trap. You can't earn your way out of a bad system forever, but you can reduce your expenses, create multiple income sources, and eliminate the debt that's eating your future. These are tactics you can implement immediately. Not next month, this week. Here's what I want you to do right now. First, share this video with someone in your network who's stuck in one of these 5 traps. Second, commit to tracking your spending for 30 days. Third, comment below and tell me which trap resonates with you the most. Is it housing, wage stagnation, debt, the investment gap, or zero optionality? Let me know what you're dealing with, because I want to make more videos that speak directly to your situation. And if you're serious about breaking free from these traps, subscribe to Money Mindset TV. We drop videos every week about wealth building, investing, and financial strategy that's actually relevant to your life in 2026. Not outdated stuff, not theory. Real actionable tactics that work in today's market conditions. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.